Today's guest is someone that a lot of you know about. He's got a huge following on social media, and his name is JayDee Milo. And oh, there he is. Oh, that was fast. Okay, let me get him on. Very exciting. He uses lots of wigs in his videos, and he's really funny. And there you are.
There we go. I was quick this time.
Yes. I was just saying. So, you do a lot of these funny videos, a lot of stuff with wigs and things. And I noticed that you started posting about legal abuse, I don't know, a couple months ago, and you're going, nobody talks about this. And I was thinking, what do you mean nobody talks about it?
Hello, I'm right here.
I'm writing in the comments. You're never going to see this. You're never going to see this. But
Oh,
I know about this.
You know what I meant though? Like in my sphere, in my like realm of what I was seeing, I wasn't seeing any of it. But I know, of course, you only see what's in your tunnel,
Yeah.
So yeah. And what I know now is from you. But yes, I did post that, and I did. I felt like, you know what? I also feel like, at least enough to like jump right into it. I still feel like not enough people talk about it though. I still feel like we need more awareness, we need more validation, we need more education. That could be with anything, but
Yeah.
this in specific because it's obviously close to our hearts.
Right.
I
And
feel like
I didn't. What did you say, JD? Say that again.
yeah, I'm sorry if you can't hear me. I said I
That's
still
better.
feel like we need more marchers. We need more kind of people on the front lines, talking about specifically legal abuse, because I didn't even know that was a term until I got your book.
I know, and I was so thrilled to see you using it. But I didn't know what it was either, until maybe 3 years ago. I just kept thinking, my life is crazy. I am in court dozens and dozens of times. I have orders that say what's supposed to happen, and yet the judges aren't enforcing them. Like, I've spent $100,000 just on the divorce, and post judgment, I'm in court more than I ever was. And I had to go pro se because my lawyer was like, you can't afford me anymore. You're going to decimate you financially. So about 3 years ago, I was just looking for like anything. And I found the term legal abuse in a judge's manual from 2015 from Washington State. And I was just like, this is my life. So, and then it started getting, and we started posting about it, and then it started getting more to be like more people know about it. But sorry, say it again. We're talking over each other.
I know. We remember this is our thing. No, it's okay. We're East Coasters. It's fine. We're gonna.
I know. Jersey, New York.
Jersey, New York, and my family's all New York. So that's what we did. You know what? Literally at the dinner table, because we were all New Yorkers, if you wanted to get a word in, you better jump in. Like that's it. We all
interrupt.
Blah, blah, blah.
Interrupt.
You jump in. So I was saying, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I do apologize. It's such a bad habit.
Me too, in advance.
Yeah, let's apologize in advance and just know we're gonna do it. And to the audience, oh, Jill, you're from America. You're from New York too. Exactly, you get it. We're apologizing in advance, me more, because I will interrupt it, but it's only because I'm excited and I get an idea and I don't want to forget it. You said that when you learned the term legal abuse, that it was what I'm assuming is it was so validating, because sometimes when you don't have language to put to what you're going through, like when I think about my childhood, I didn't have the language for why is my mom drawing in all of the curtains? Why is it so dark in here? Why does mom sleep for 3 days straight after she's done a 6-day shift in a row? I didn't have language for that. And I also thought that's what everybody's house is. But when you grow up and you have language for, oh, that's depression or that's anxiety, or, I always used to sweat really bad. Like, I'm talking like down halfway, I would have to like put paper towels in my shirt. This was like all through school. I didn't have language for that. I didn't know in ninth grade why I was sweating so much. I just thought I sweat a lot. No, that's anxiety. That's stress. That's worry. So when you have language for it, it validates everything. And you're like, oh my God, okay. So putting a name to it, like legal abuse, just like you going through it, for me, for someone who speaks about stuff like this, it was like, oh my God, this is a word. This is a term. This is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, JD, I don't know if a lot of people know this before we launch into our topic, which we're going to take like 15 minutes getting ready to do. But
I,
so my background is in education, my master's is in education, and you have a background in education as well. And so I love that we're on the same page
yeah,
with wanting to get the education out there. Our whole thing is empowerment through education. And like you said, when you have language, when you understand what you're doing, it makes you feel less alone and also have more power
yeah.
because you know this is what it is. Now I can find out what to do about it.
Yes, exactly. And education's so big for me. When I grew up, I was so focused on getting into a school, and I know we didn't have money. I knew we didn't have money for college, so I focused really hard. I wanted to make my mom proud. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I promised my mother I would get my master's degree, and then she passed away, and I thought I made a promise. And so I got that master's degree. They always tell me in therapy, you need to do things for yourself. You can't do something for somebody else. I am here to say I did that master's for my mother. That was not for me at all. I did it for, I'm proud of myself and I did it. But that MBA on my wall, that's for my mom. But I do come from a background of education. I've worked in higher education for 20 years. So when I got into this, I think people sometimes, and it's totally fine, I don't care, but sometimes people think that I'm just kind of like this silly guy who puts on a wig and sort of makes skits and like, and sure, but it's so much deeper than that, and it's so much more than that. And now it's turned into, the more I can educate, the better this platform has served me and served other people because now there's a purpose to it. In the
Yeah.
beginning, it was just, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm sharing my story. Now it's, okay, what can I do with my platform? I have a responsibility now. When you reach a certain amount of people and you have a voice that can reach people, in my opinion, you have a certain responsibility to do something with that. So I'm trying. I'm not, the best, but I am trying to do what I can.
You're doing great. Okay, so let's get into it. So
Let's get
here
into it.
you are, you're this man,
I
but
am.
your platform is geared towards single moms in
Yes.
particular dealing with domestic violence and craziness. What is the story? Like really, really difficult, like high conflict stuff like what we deal with. What's the
Yes.
story behind that? What got you to align yourself with single moms?
Sure. Well, I am the son of one. And as the child of a single mom, I was so close to her, Lisa, that everything she went through, I felt everything. I worried a lot about her. I lost a lot of sleep worrying about her. I saw how tired she was. Now, my brother, God love him, was the opposite. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but he blocked everything out. My brother was also abused as a child from my father. So I grew up with my mother and not my father. She had divorced him by the time she had me, but I have an older brother, and that abuse that she endured, my brother also endured. So I think a lot of his habits and a lot of his blocking things out, he would always have these heavy headphones on when things were going crazy in the house. And I was the one, where's mom? Is she okay? I was just a worrier. And so I appreciated everything my mom did. Christmas time would come around and I would hope that she wouldn't spend all her money on gifts. Like I was the kid that I think wanted to make sure my mom was okay at all times. And I didn't want, it just was that type of relationship. I slept with my mom. This sounds so weird. Not slept. I slept in her bed until like I was 12. Like I just wanted to be near my mom. I loved my mom and I had so much appreciation for her. So watching her go through what she went through, struggling financially, the abuse that she endured at the hands of my father, which I did not witness, but she had relationships after my father. And that abuse continued because it's the cycle of abuse. And my mother didn't have the tools or education or knowledge or self-esteem to know she didn't deserve that. She just found herself in the same relationships with a different man. And I was always listening in the other room to seeing what, like, to hear, is she okay? Is she all right? Like, are they arguing? Is she going to get hit again? If she would go out for a night out, which she deserved so much, I was worried something was going to, I just was always worrying that something was going to happen to her. So within the years that she was going through all this, she formed an addiction. I don't even know if that's the right word. She struggled through addiction, alcoholism, and then eventually drug addiction, which was opiates, heroin, and then unfortunately fentanyl, which, by the way, two of those things were prescribed to her. So the fentanyl and the opiates were prescribed because she had back issues. And that's a whole other topic that we could talk about at some other time, but that can be very dangerous because doctors sometimes are so kind of like, what do you need? And then here it is, and there's not a lot of education about it, and it's very addictive. And I can explain how I know that in a bit. But my mother became addicted to those, and to sort of go forward fast, in 2011, she lost her life to fentanyl, and it was an accidental overdose. I didn't expect it actually at all. And at that point in her life, I was 24, she was 52. Things, Lisa, had sort of kind of calmed down, believe it or not. Like,
Really?
she had gone through tons of therapy. She taught me a lot of the things that I talk about now. She sat down with me and said, she used to call me Pussycat. We would just have long talks and we would just talk about her life. And I was so interested in, because I loved her so much and she was so loving to me. I've never been spanked. Not that I disagree with spanking. That's not what I'm saying, but I've never been spanked. I've never been grounded. That's not, I think, because my mother didn't believe in it. I was a good kid because I wanted my mom's life to be as easy as possible. Like, I didn't want to give her trouble. I didn't want to give her an issue. She had a lot going on as it is. So we just had this close relationship. And I mean, friend close. And also, my mom really taught me that I could do anything that I want. Like, I really believed in myself because of my mother. Like, if I put my mind to it, I can do it. Um, I was an orchestra. I was a violinist for 15 years. I did that for a while. I thought that's what I would do with my career. Then I graduated college and then I got into education. But when she passed away in 2011, I really fell into a depression and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I had felt like I lost both parents because when you grow up with just one, when you lose that parent, it felt like I had lost both. I don't have a relationship with my father. So I was lost. I didn't have as much therapy as I do now, not even close to what I have now. And I found myself in the same addiction that she found herself in. And I, went to the doctor because I had a back issue. It turned into I was getting prescribed Percocets and Vicodin. Then I started to see after my mother passed away, oh, these help me feel better mentally. Like I'm not as sad now because I'm taking these pills. So then it turned into, oh, I don't cry as much because of this. Now I need more. And just like a lot of addicts can relate to, it just turned into more and more and more. And I found myself at the age of 26, a full blown heroin addict. And I wound up at one point in my life wanting to inject this heroin through needle, which I've never done before. And the first time that I did that, I overdosed. And thank God I was found by a friend, and paramedics came. They said if I had 15 minutes left to live. I think I
Oh
was
my God.
32. I'm really bad with time, but um, when I went through that and I got through that and I survived that overdose, that is the day that I got clean because I thought this is not what my mom would want. I spent my entire life trying to make her proud. I spent my entire life focusing on school and orchestra and like what can I do? What award can I get to throw on the wall again so that my mom is proud of her kid? Not that she wasn't proud of my older brother, but I just was that kid of like, Mom, look, I got another A for you, or I got another award for you. And I thought this is exactly what she wouldn't want. And I actually, in my brain, think my mother took me out that day to sort of teach me a lesson. Like, you want to go down this road? You want to do what I did? This is what's going to happen to you. You're not going to survive this. And I think because I injected it that day, intravenously instead of what I was doing up my nose, it scared me, Lisa. It really scared me because I didn't realize how dangerous it was. I didn't even realize I realized I was in it. You don't realize you're in it until you're in it, and it can hit anybody. That's the thing about addiction is there is no class that it doesn't hit. It doesn't matter how much education you have. There's such a stigma of, well, that only happens to certain people. Not, it'll never happen to me. I didn't drink a beer till I was 22 years old. I never smoked a cigarette in my life. I was that kid. I was straight laced. And then I found myself in this situation. So anyway, I'm happy to say I've been clean now. It's going on 6 years. I'm in therapy twice a week for it. And now I feel like because I have a second chance, I was given the second chance. What can I do to honor my mom's life? I needed something to stop this sadness. And I didn't know what I needed to do. I wanted to get her story out. I wanted to speak about, what a great mom I had, but also the trials and tribulations and could anyone relate maybe? So a therapist told me in 2019, my therapist, Brooke, I love her to death. She said, I think I know what could maybe help you a little bit and give you like an outlet. She said, you've been wanting to finish your mom's book. My mother started writing her story on a computer that I still have. She said, why don't you start sharing her story? Why don't you start talking about it more, not just to me and not to your family and friends, but to strangers? And I'm like, where you want me to go on the street and like with a microphone, who am I going to talk to? And she said, no, you have like a personality about you. You seem to, be able to be comfortable in front of people. You have education behind you. Why don't you speak online? Why don't you try some apps like Instagram or Facebook or TikTok? I didn't have TikTok. I had Instagram. Um, and I thought about it for a couple of days and I thought, you know what? Why not? What if I reach like one or two women that have gone through what she went through, which we skipped over? I mean, obviously, it'd take forever to talk about all the things that she had gone through that I didn't witness and that I did witness. But I thought, if I could start maybe helping people, then maybe I can start to help myself because it just was so sad and it was so dark. So I did it. I shared one story, Lisa, about my mother going through reactive abuse, an episode with my father, where, after 20 years of physical, emotional, psychological, all of the abuse you can think of with my father, she had had enough. And she stabbed him one day in the kitchen with a knife and almost killed him. And she was on trial for attempted murder. And the judge looked at the stacks of evidence, not evidence, the hospital visits, the amount of times the police were called because of the abuse inflicted on her. And this judge, thank God, looked at my mother and said, this is a clear case of self-defense. Go home to your boys. My mother didn't spend a day in jail. And I am not saying that that is the solution. I am not saying that what my mother did in that kitchen that day, I don't recommend that. What I am saying, though, is that everyone has a breaking point, and my mother didn't have the tools to know how to get out of that. And it's very difficult, even when you do, to get out of an abusive relationship when you have kids with someone because of post-separation abuse. You have to have the education and know it. So I shared that one story. It's an extreme story, but it's a true story. Lisa, I had thousands, I'm talking thousands of women reach out. The video went viral, and I just was reading through the comments, and all of these women were like, you are telling the story of me. You are speaking my story maybe in a different context, but that's what I'm going through right now, or that's what my mother went through. And I felt this kinship almost, I guess, with strangers. I felt this connection. I felt validated, like, oh my God, my mom, what she went through and what I went through that whole time, and the homelessness and the struggling and her trying to get through an addiction, and then what I went through. Other people go, this is like common, which was A, sad and kind of like a real bummer to know this was so prevalent, but B, so comforting to know, oh my gosh, there's people out there that can relate to what my mother's gone through, and they need to also be validated. They also need to be heard. I was having women commenting saying, thank you for telling this and saying this because it's making me feel less crazy. So from that moment on, this was in 2019, I've never stopped. I have not missed one day of posting something. Because I am the son of Sandi Milo, my mother was very funny. She was very funny, like the funniest person I ever met in my life. We went through a lot of hard times, but we laughed a lot. Like, I mean, I can think of stories and I still like cry laughing. Mm-hmm. So I thought this cannot be so heavy and dark all the time, though. It can't, because it's just I need to add a little bit of humor in here. And so I add some skits in that like are really ridiculous, that where I'm wearing wigs and stuff, because that's the comedy part of me. I'm very creative. I've been in music and theater, and I do that not because this situation or content is funny at all. It's the exact opposite. But what I do is if I can make someone laugh that's going through a really hard time, then I feel like I've also done my job. And I get a lot of women that say, oh my God, I was in the hospital for a week going through surgery or something. And I was scrolling on your page, or I saw something pop up and you made me laugh in just like the worst of times. Thank you. And also too, I feel like some of those skits, well, all of them have a message underneath, through humor, you can really get across messages that are very serious. And so if I have to put on a wig to get to a video that'll push out the idea of what post-separation abuse does, or what it means, or what narcissism means, especially when you're a single parent, I'll do it, and I'll happily do it, because again, it's sort of this, I get something out of it too, right? It's a release for me, and that's the selfish part, but it's also helping because it's therapy for me. I get to get that out. So
that's not selfish.
Yeah, I hope not. And for me, I feel like if it is in any sense, because if it is helping, I feel like it's okay. It's a form of, we're all getting something out of it. And from there, it stemmed to a community of women now that you've actually been in one of the Zoom sessions, but I've formed a community of single moms. I still do. You can go on my page and there's a link you can click on, and we have a private Facebook page. It's completely private. a private WhatsApp chat. We vet everybody to make sure that there's no mandated reporters in there or, you know, deadbeat exes or something. And it is just for women. And that's my choice. I do choose to speak specifically only for and about single moms, only because that's my experience. It's not that I don't know and believe that there's great single dads out there. There's tons, and that there's not awful moms. I understand that. I'm you know aware of that, but I speak for in the majority and also from my own experience. But you know, I've started to really use my platform for what I feel like I can do some good with. That's what would honor my mom. Is it because she tried to do it all the time? We would have homeless people staying in our like two-bedroom apartment, sleeping on the floor in the living room. And I was so angry as a kid when that would happen, like stepping over people that I didn't know. And I was so mad at my mom as like a 12-year-old. Like, who are these people? My mother was bringing in the homeless. She would see people that didn't have anywhere to go. She would feed them. We didn't. She always made sure her kids had. We always had everything we needed, but she'd go without to make sure others had because she knew what it felt like to be cold, hungry, homeless. You know, that happened at 13 for her. She was on her own at 13. So now as an adult, I look back on that and I just have so much respect for my mom because that's bigger and better than I think I could ever be for myself and do. So I just know that the work that I'm trying to do, I know my mom would be proud. And that's what I've been trying to do my whole life. But now I'm also, and I have to say honestly, proud of myself too. I've overcome an addiction. Well, I guess they say you're always an addict, but I've been clean now for 6 years and really focusing. I've changed the addiction into something really positive that fills my time and it really helps me. Um, and so that's sort of where I'm at right now is that I'm trying to really continue to use my platform, connect with people like you, Lisa. The book, you know how I feel about your book. Uh, it's an amazing book. It's really helped. I use it as curriculum in my single mom meetings.
I
Um,
almost fainted when you told me that.
really? Oh my God, I almost
Yeah,
fainted when you
amazing.
commented, and I was like, that's the author. I need her. I need to talk to her. Because your book was a book that I received from a friend, well, a mutual friend that we both have, Patty. She's amazing. I read the book in 2 days. It was an easy read, but it was a strong read. It was a powerful read, and I started the whole book is almost highlighted. But I started saying, okay, this is what I'm going to teach in one of my Zoom classes with my single moms this day, and this part of chapter 7 specifically 5 through 7 I've used in my single mom community sessions and they've been so helpful for people and it's education again, right? I'm trying to fill toolboxes for the single mamas that were my mom that she didn't have all this, she didn't have any of this, and I wish she could have. So that's, I guess that's what I'm trying to do. I've met some amazing women. I've met some powerful women across the globe. In these meetings we have people from Ireland, Kenya, Australia, America, you know, Mexico. And but the one thing that everyone can relate to is the abuse that they've either endured or still enduring and trying to heal through that. And together they validate each other. Sometimes I don't even I stay off the meetings, like I'll let them go afterwards and they'll talk and I'll come back and sneak on and they'll be on for like 4 hours still on the Zoom meeting. And I'm like, they need this. They need a community that understands each other because it's very hard to explain narcissistic abuse in specific. It's very hard to explain that to someone who doesn't understand and relate to it. Sometimes you can't explain it, but if you've been through it, it's this automatic, you don't even need to explain it. I get it. And they start to nod and like validate each other. And it's so healing, even just in that. Never mind the education on top of it, just women saying, I get it. I hear you. I understand you. I've been there. I could see their faces. I see their shoulders drop in relaxation a little bit of like, oh my God, I'm not alone. And so I think that would have been great for my mom to really understand too, is that she's not alone and there's resources out there. And she didn't have that. And I didn't have that. So yeah, I talked a lot, but
You
that's sort of my
did. I was like, I got one question in, but and you have an appointment in like 5 minutes.
I'll let
Um,
you know when it pops up. I'll see the it's just a really quick Zoom meeting for yeah, an appointment. But yeah, so
all
that's
right.
sort
So
of
I was thinking about like the beginning of a big question because I know in our community, well, first, there's like so many things to say about everything you said. But the last thing you said about a supportive community, I think it is really important. I know our clients are all dealing with high conflict divorce and domestic violence, and obviously not just physical. And when they join regular divorce groups, people don't get it because this is the extreme. And then they end up feeling even more isolated. So that's why it is so important to have a supportive community of people that really get what you are specifically going through. And, you know, we have this weekly legal abuse support group that we do. And I tell people, like, it's only high conflict. So you're never going to have to be like, I know this sounds crazy. Like, everyone gets it. And sometimes we'll have somebody on being like, this is my situation is really crazy. And we're all just like, no, it's not.
You haven't heard.
Like, we already know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's so true, right? You don't have to preface it when you come in with, this is going to make your mind, like, it's like, we've heard it, and it's not that their stories aren't extreme and not they're not unique, but we're both dealing with the same demographic. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I love too. I'm like, you've got all these people, and your people are a little bit different than ours, because I think ours are a little bit further along with the legal process stuff, because ours are already in the middle. Then we have people we call our babies, who are at the very beginning of the process, that I like to say, even though they tend to be more overwhelmed than anybody, that they have more power because they haven't made those expensive mistakes yet. So anyway, and also I know from just interviewing a therapist recently that people who are in supportive communities, who have really good support groups, heal faster. They heal better. And I see it. I see it with our clients. I'm sure you see it too. Just that validation of like, oh my God, you get it. Like, you get it. I don't have to be like, because that's what they deal with in the regular world. And I know a lot of our clients too are very professional, capable, brilliant, creative, awesome sense of humor. And so sometimes they can't talk about what they're dealing with, because people, without necessarily meaning to, will say, oh, you of all people fell for that. So like you said, it's not just addiction. Domestic violence is also something that crosses everything. Anybody can fall victim to it.
I have
and
doctors
often
in my community. I have authors in my community. I have 2 journalists in my community. A lot of my women that are in this community have bachelor. It has nothing to do with education, class, race. It hits anybody. Right. And it really, really, it's an epidemic. Lisa, you and I both know that.
It is the top crime.
Domestic abuse in general.
Yeah. Top crime in my town and in many, many cities all over the world, is domestic violence. Yeah. And people don't really understand that, but there's so much shame associated with it that a lot of people don't reach out for help. I know I never would ever considered talking to a domestic violence center, because in my head I was like, oh, that's battered women. Like, even though my stuff is physical, it's not battered. So it's not for me. So I think, again, getting that education out there is so important. And I'm looking at the time again, because I'm like, I want to ask you a big question, but
let you know when the thing pops up, and then if we're in the middle of a question, it's okay, we can finish it. But yeah, no, you could go. I was going to say too, though, yeah, a lot of women don't realize that they're in an abusive relationship, because you try to tell this is what I hear anyway, you try to talk it away. Like, well, he doesn't beat me, so I'm not really being domestically abused. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not punching me in the face, so it's not. And actually, statistics have shown that emotional and verbal and psychological abuse is actually longer lasting than physical. Physical, you see,
stays in your head. Physical, you can get away. The other stuff stays. We always say part of what Chris and I do is help people get that person's voice out of your head. But the word, I know I taught you the term soul parent the other week. Here's another one: minimize. People in abusive situations minimize their experience. We often talk about, we had a legal abuse support meeting a couple of years ago, and this woman is apologizing, saying, I know my situation's probably not as bad as everyone's here, but then she started talking about how her ex threw her out of a moving car. But she's apologizing for saying, like, mine's not that bad. That's what we see all the time. Mine isn't that bad.
Right.
And also, like you said, emotional.
They're like so used to apologizing, and they're so used to saying, I'm sorry that I'm causing you such whatever, or that. And it's like, you don't ever have to start with that sentence, ever. And, I've also heard a saying that just because you have 2 broken legs doesn't mean my broken arm doesn't hurt. Meaning that just because your case is maybe more extreme in some sense doesn't mean that, like, my story doesn't matter and this is painful as well. So, a lot of women say that, like, I know that there's so many other women that have gone through worse. You don't have to start with that sentence. You have a story, and you're entitled to feel the way that you feel. And you have pain, and let's talk about it. You know what I hope that metaphor made sense.
Absolutely. I don't know if we told you this, JD, but at the beginning of every legal abuse support group, we say you never need to apologize for crying, cursing, kids, critters, cigarettes, your complexion, And there's one more I forgot.
Oh,
But
I
anyway,
love
it's
it.
just like everyone's always like, and we're like, don't worry about it.
Yep. Whatever you need to do, because again, this is heavy, hard, and you've done enough apologizing. Like we don't need, there's no need for that. This is a safe place. So again, when you said that a lot of healing comes from just validation, being around people that understand you, that is so true and so powerful. And I think that that's why I continue what I do, because if I can keep getting the word out there, then I have more people understanding, no, this happens and people are getting through it and there's a positive end to it and there's a light to it. And I know you really focus on that you can get through this and there is an end that you can get to, and these are the steps that you take, and let's focus on the wins and the positive here, because
And the
there are
progress.
stories that are the progress. Yes, that takes work, and I think a lot of what you guys do lends to that in so many ways. But there's also sometimes advice that certain, single soul parents have to take that maybe they don't love either. You may not love that you have to do this, but if you want to do what you want, like if you want to get what you want in court or whatever, you're going to have to sort of play the game sometimes. And there's that whole court stuff, like the whole, like, it's a game sort of, and you got to play it to win it. And I am not an
Yeah.
expert by any means, but a lot of the things that you've told me and the advice that I've heard women get, a lot of it, sometimes you got to swallow. You guys have that barf bag thing, and it's like
Yeah, the
some
bark
of the
bag.
things.
That's our
I love that
bark,
because it's
right?
like
Because
it
we say
sucks, but
you have to play the role to get to the goal. And that's why certain people with coaching them will be like, look, like we're New Yorkers, we do what's called the harsh New York reality check, and we're just going to tell you things that you're not going to want to hear. But our point is to get you through this, to get you on the other side and to strategize properly. So you're not going to like it, but
yeah,
whatever gets you through, right?
exactly. And Jaden, yes, the answer is yes. Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
All right. And no, it's fine. Okay, so I know I just don't want to have to interrupt you before I ask this big question because what I really want to get into, which we don't have time to do today, is what it was like for you as the child in the situation. Because JayDee, you strike me as also having the qualities of someone who's been in these abusive relationships, even though you weren't directly there for the abuse. You're what we call one of the sweetie pies. Like I sense where you put others' needs before your own, for whatever reason, like being so close to your mom and seeing what she was dealing with. I hear you so much of like, I was so concerned with her. And it almost sounds like, you were like a bit of a parent. That's what happens in these situations because you're so close to your parent and you're so worried and you want to keep your mom safe. And I know you have other stories about, when she got in these new relationships, and we know that repeating the same toxic cycle happens all the time. But I know we don't have time to get into all of that now with you know
Yeah, it's okay.
even
Yeah,
appointments. But
I'm
next
actually
time.
checking. I think so. Yes, sorry, I'm still here. I had to just
Okay.
check to make sure. So yes, that is true in a lot of ways, Lisa. That as a child, I did feel like, I don't know if I was, if I felt like a parent or more of just like, I had to be more of an adult than probably what I would have loved to
An
be.
adult.
I never
Yes.
watched cartoons. I used to watch Oprah with my mom. Like
Yeah.
I never was really a kid. I was more of just the worrying about my mom and not wanting to go out much or her to go out much because I was just always so scared. I was always so nervous
Right.
about what was going to happen because there was a lot of trauma and a lot of things did
Right.
happen,
Yeah.
and still to this day, I protect my mom's, like, I never want to put out a lot of information that might make her look bad in any way. But in reality, it just humanizes her more. And I've talked to a lot of therapists, and they say, paint your picture the way that you feel like you need to. But it's okay to also say the other things about your mom that, if you're going to speak the truth, have happened, like her addiction, for instance. I didn't want to talk about that at all because I thought people will judge her. No, that just makes other people that are going through it more validated. That just helps more. So, I'm getting there now. Not that we just because we all have flaws. And my mother went through a lot. She didn't have a lot of tools. She was on her own at a very young age. And there were obviously mistakes made along the way, because how wouldn't there be, right? So I'm getting better at opening up a bit more about my childhood. I've never actually even said this, but I was emancipated at 16. I was actually
Really.
divorced from her at 16. And the reason why is because she had gotten in trouble and was incarcerated. And at the age of 16, I had already had a full-time job. I had a scholarship to Penn State. I was in school. I had all A's. I was doing really well. I did not want to go into foster care at 16, turning 17, when I was capable in my brain of paying rent and basically being, I was already an adult at, 13, I felt like in a lot of ways. So I had to legally divorce my mom because of I didn't want to go into foster care. And we both agreed that that's going to be the best route while I'm in here. Um, and there's just stories that, again, I just sometimes I feel bad saying because, again, oh God, it makes my mom look bad. It's the truth, though. And I know,
It doesn't. But I think it's
oh,
also important to talk about because I have two kids too, and I see, and one of them is right behind me. She's
hi.
visiting from college. but I think that kids, someone had said it in one of the comments, but kids are forced to grow up a lot faster in situations like these.
Yeah,
And one thing I see in at least one of my kids, and I've seen in other kids of parents in dynamics like this is they are like you, they are hyper responsible. You talk to my partner, Chris, you have things in common with how you're raised and that like being really, really close to your mom and your mom is your hero, but almost like being so close that you couldn't just be sort of carefree. Like people think, oh, you're a child, you shouldn't worry about anything. But because of
right.
the situation, you become more like an adult and you become more concerned and you take on these big emotions because of the
Yes,
situation. You know,
yes,
I know with my son in particular, he also, I mean, his father and him haven't been in touch for a long time, but which is unfortunate. But it's for in terms of success, I feel like he always tries like really, really hard. Like he has to be so successful, and it's never enough. It's always like I gotta do this and I gotta do this. And he collects all these awards and accolades, but there's something inside him. And I've seen I have a good friend who's also the daughter of a mom with some issues, and she's the same way. Like I got to be really successful. And it's just like they're never satisfied. Do you see that in yourself? I don't know if you want to talk about this.
yeah, yeah. No, I definitely did more than I do now. But yes, and that was to fill a void that I didn't know how to fill, right? Like that was me trying to make my mom's life happier and better. I felt like if
Right.
I did more things and I got more awards, she would feel happier and the depression would lessen and that she would, like yes, I did feel that need and I did do that. But now I do feel satisfied with what I do and what I don't feel that need as much of like I'm not doing enough. Oh my God, I need to continue to like, and I still push myself and I still want to always get better and learn more. And I always say I want to be better than I was yesterday, but especially as like a partner and a friend and a colleague, like I want the best version of me for other people too. So like my partner that I have now, David, my boyfriend, I'm so happy because he gets the best version of me. Like I always say, like I'm so happy for you. Not that I'm so great, but like at least he's got the best JD that, someone's had because I've really worked on myself and reflected and looked at like what flaws do I need to work on? We all have them. And I think when we go back to narcissists and narcissistic abuse, they don't have that quality. Like they don't have that in them to go, what did I do wrong or what can I do better or how, like narcissists, they don't co-parent, they counter-parent. You've talked about that. And
Mhm.
my therapist actually said to me one time, if you ask yourself, am I a narcissist? Then you're not one because a
Right.
narcissist would never ask that
Right.
question.
'Cause they
Um,
don't reflect. They
they
don't
don't
reflect. They think
reflect.
they're fine.
Yeah, they're always right. They don't do anything wrong. And so I'm the opposite. Sometimes to a fault, but I'm better now. But I'm always thinking like I would always apologize or I'm sorry I did it wrong or Lisa, I'm sorry that like I have to go or whatever. And it's like stop saying sorry. And I've also learned in my life too to be able to take compliments and like my therapist sometimes. God, I'm in heavy therapy, but I need it. But like if she compliments me and says, "I love that shirt," or "You look nice today," I used to sort of get uncomfortable with that and be like,
Yeah.
no, I hate that. Like, no, I don't. Ugh. And like I've learned to be able to accept compliments or if someone says thank you for, putting a video out that really touched me, instead of saying like, oh, you don't say thank you, I say you're welcome. I'm so glad that
Mhm.
was what I wanted to do. And so anyway, I'm a work in progress. We're all a work in progress, but this has really helped me in so many ways, and that's why it's a partnership, me and this community, because as much as they feel like I'm maybe helping get the message out, I always call myself the messenger. They're also giving me what I feel like I've always wanted, which was to honor my mom and to honor her legacy and to be able to tell the real story of what happens when you're the child of a single mom who has gone through this type of abuse, and has struggled through all of that. I love to be able to tell the story of her, but also through my eyes, which I know you're working on a book, which I am so excited about, which maybe we could do a part two because now I see my little Zoom coming up for this other meeting. But I love that you validate me. You've said to me, your story matters. Like it's this, the son of a child of a single mom, that story matters. And that has its own thing. And I appreciate you saying that because children of single parents and sole parents do have a story. And there is a whole thing there that, you know, you can really work on and learn from. So, yeah, I'm excited for your second book because I love the first one so much. But
Thank you. Okay, so for our next talk,
yes,
remind me what I want to start with is because this is one of the biggest fears in this community is like, oh my God, X is horrible, or my life is like, they're in the same situation as your mom, different details. Like, I'm terrified my kids are going to be ruined. So when we start our next conversation, I'm going to ask you what you would say to women in particular who are terrified that their kids are going to be completely messed up from what's happening, because not necessarily, obviously, but it is, you know, life is a series of bumps along the way, and you know, for anybody. So that's what we'll start with. I know you have to go to your meeting. Oh, your volume's off.
Oh,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'll remind you for part two of that question for sure. We'll start with
Yeah.
that.
All right.
Thank you for having
All right.
me on,
So
Lisa.
good seeing you, JayDee.
I appreciate
We'll catch
it.
up
Talk
soon.
soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.